Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Yash Rathi, and I work as a learning and organization development specialist with Ford India Private Limited. I am a life member of ISTD and committee member of ISTD Ahmedabad chapter, and I welcome you all to the 33rd Learners Forum on Servant Leadership. The Indian Society for Training and Development, ISTD, was established in April 1970, and it is a national level, professional, and non-profit society registered under the Societies Registrations Act 1860. It has a large membership of individuals and institutions involved in the area of training and development of human resource from government, public, and private sector organizations and enterprises, educational and training institutions, and other professional bodies. The society is affiliated to the International Federation of Training and Development Organizations, IFTDO, USA, and Asian Regional Training and Development Organizations, ARTDO, Manila. ISTD organizes training programs all over the country, both at chapter and national levels. It has been designated as the national nodal agency to testing and certification of skilled workers in the organized and unorganized sectors. ISTD is managed by a national council headed by a president at the apex level and managing committees headed by a chairman at the chapter level. They are assisted by other office bearers and functional committees in a wide spectrum of activities. Now, as we begin, just a couple of ways of working. So all of you are currently on mute, so you need to raise your hand to speak, and you'll see that option on your right-hand side. All the questions will be taken up towards the end, so you can put in your questions in the questions tab, which is again at the right-hand side, the last tab that you see. Use the chat box to interact and respond to the questions that the speaker would put forth to you, and give reactions during these sessions, just like I'm demonstrating right now. So today we have with us Mr. Viraj Shukla, CEO of Path Pharma Life LLP and CEO and founder of Free Spirit Online Services LLP. As a businessman, he has been instrumental in transforming the pharmaceutical business extensively with a vision of sustainable growth. Being a young entrepreneur, Mr. Viraj, as a founder and CEO of Free Spirit Online Services LLP, has launched one of its kind services in the fashion and transportation industry. Mr. Viraj positions himself somewhere in between the jaunt of keeping his life and the lives of the ones around him as positive as possible. Not because he just enjoys it, but because he believes in the society where one stands for the other, but not just as a help, but as a societal commitment of uplifting each other for mutual growth. And that's where our topic for today also intertwines: servant leadership. It is a leadership philosophy in which the main goal of the leader is to serve. This is quite different from traditional leadership, where the leader's main focus is the thriving of their company or organization. As Robert Greenleaf says, the servant leader is a servant first. It begins with a natural feeling that one wants to serve first, as opposed to wanting power, influence, fame, or wealth. But he also mentions, behind every great achievement is a dreamer of great dreams. So on this note, I now request Mr. Viraj Shukla to address the participants of today's session. Over to you, Viraj.
Thank you so much, Yash. First of all, it's a real pleasure. It's a real
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be moderated by this amazing human called Yash Rathi. Thank you so much, brother. And apart from that, I would really like to start with a first thank you note, which I'll be doing in the presentation as well. So apart from this, I just want to tell all of you that while we talk about this session, please make sure that we can keep it as interactive as possible, because there have been a lot of people who know me. They know that particularly that when it comes to presentations, that is making a PPT, I have always been a lazy rat when it comes down to that. But I've always been onto that front, that if I need to speak and make sure that you are understanding each and every concept, that's something that I'm good at, I personally feel. So if you have any other doubts, we'll definitely discuss it out. And let me just tell you, I am no expert. I am just a person who is being called to talk on a certain thing which he has practiced and which he thinks that personally it has helped him a lot all throughout his career, which is probably just 5 years. But within this 5 years, it has helped me to make the man that I am currently. So, first of all, before we start, I just wanted to say this, that do ask questions or just interact. That do you feel that this is right or not? And we can not exactly ascertain a conclusion, but we can definitely come down to one particular perspective, that whether this is learnable and whether it can be practiced easily or not. We can definitely talk about this. So how about we start it now? How many people would have joined approximately, Yash, if I can just get a count normal?
We have close to around 22 people on call already, and people are joining in.
Okay, okay. I am really thankful that these people have put up in this particular fashion, and I'm really thankful for that. Yeah. So, do you think so that it's a fine time to start now, or should we wait for some more time?
We can start.
We
We
can
can get
definitely.
going.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. So, what can I do is now I'll share my screen, and now you'll be able to see me while the presentation is going on. So, do tell me if I'm looking bad. That Viraj, you're not looking good. So I'll just change the position and make sure that I look good, because that's the most important thing. Yeah. Then we
No,
can.
you're looking absolutely fantastic.
So while I'm looking good, just to make sure that I'm able to make and deliver a concept that's really very, very important in today's world. So I'll just start out and I'll share my screen. If there's any other doubt, even Yash can let me know. Yes.
Sure.
Just a second. Yeah, I think so that you will be able to see my screen now.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Now I'll do one thing. I'll start the slideshow from the beginning. So as you can see, it's a very plain presentation, but it's exactly how I like it to be. No other extravagance, just proper concepts and what exactly do I feel about it. So as you can see, the concept is servant leadership, a concept coined by Mr. Robert Greenleaf. When you talk about this man, Mr. Robert Greenleaf, he actually thought about this concept and wrote about it as an essay. He did not write a book or he did not deliver something out of it. He just wrote an essay which actually went viral even at that point in time. Now, what does Mr. Robert Greenleaf has to say is he read a book by an author called Hermann Hesse. I'll be talking about that in the end of this session, that what exactly made him write about this kind of a leadership. So what Mr. Robert Greenleaf thinks is, I'll directly put out that. But yeah, before that, as I just told, why do I keep vote of thanks first? Is many people tell me that during a presentation, Viraj, do have that much sense that keep the vote of thanks to the end, because that's the ending part. You end this note with that. But I always feel that if I have been called somewhere to speak about a concept that I feel that has worked really well, it is because of the things that I've learned from people. It is from the things that I personally feel that it's going to matter at a given point in time, not only to me, but to the organization. That's the first concept that I feel is the biggest way of how servant leadership works. That is, think about others first. Now, with this vote of thanks, I really wish to thank each and everybody who was there with me when I had absolutely nothing, and they particularly know it. That yes, I did not have anything at that given point in time, but you stood with me. You believed in that personal feeling that Viraj had the capacity of doing a thing which can get him to a status or which can get him to the pedestal that he always thought of being in. So I would really like to thank all these people. First of all, the people who are joining in today. Thank you for believing that whatever I'm going to share today is going to make certain amount of sense. I really hope so, that it's going to make certain sense. But after that, I would really, really like to thank my faculties, because of whom I have the capacity to deliver certain facts, figures, or even a concept that has not been spoken way too loud. But I still get the audacity from these people that I can speak on something that I really feel that is correct. So I really like to thank all of you for being here and giving me the blessings and having giving me the privilege of talking to you in this way as well. So now I'll proceed forward with the presentation. So now, as you can see, the first is the definition. Yeah, it starts out like this. This shall mostly be the most oxymoronic combination of words you will see in relation to a concept like leadership. Now, why do I say oxymoronic? Why do I say that these two are kind of opposite words? When you talk about a servant and a leader, we have always grown with a concept that a leader is the one who leads the servants or the followers. Nobody actually likes to hear the word servant. But that's the whole beauty of the concept. Leadership is a gift given to us by those who we serve. So if you just imagine, let's just take your parents for an example. When you were young and you were caught up in a fight or probably some misunderstanding or a misconception because of which you are at a really bad position, the first thing that you think at that point in time is, I need to call my father, I need to call my mother. And at that point in time, everything was way too much resolved. We know, okay, if they are there, I'm going to get out of the situation. That's the first way of looking at servant leadership. You serve those people who you love, and you do it without the expectation of getting anything in return. When you do that, the person actually comes to know that this thing is being done by his heart. This thing is done so that one particular objective can be achieved, which is not his personal objective, but our total objective. That's what this leadership looks at. A new kind of leadership model, as I just said, that it was a term coined in 1970. Still, it is considered to be a new model. Can you imagine that? Why? Why is it still considered to be a new concept? Still, probably about how many years it has been? It has about been 50 years since this concept has come up. But why isn't still it being practiced regularly in organizations? Well, I had a similar question that how do you perceive this? How do you even look at it? I'll just give you an example. How many of us today are willing to be called servants? Nobody. Believe me, nobody, including you, including me, each and everybody. But this servant leadership was specifically coined by Mr. Greenleaf to make sure that you can just pause at a given point. Why is he using these two words together? That's how he's trying to convey that it's way more in relation to the transformational leadership that we've already learned. Now, what does transformational leadership or what does servant leadership say is a model which puts serving others as the number one priority. Servant leadership emphasizes increased service to others, a holistic approach to work, promoting a sense of community, and the sharing of power in decision making. I have a small video here just to explain that what does he himself think is what servant leadership is. Yash, if I have your permission, can I just start with the video?
Sure, Viraj.
Yep. Just a second. I hope till now I'm making sense, and I will make much more sense now, because once you see the video, there are quite a lot of things that you'll perceive that this is how the concept is being looked at.
You'll have to stop sharing your screen.
Sure. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah. It's loading. Just give me a minute.
I really feel that the world is in desperate need of a different leadership role model. We've seen what self-serving leaders have done to the detriment of people in every sector of society all around the world. And so what we really need is people who are servant leaders, people who are there to serve first and lead second. Leadership is an influence process. We're all influencing each other all the time. So everybody's a leader in every part of their lives. The most effective leaders I know are just good human beings. They care about people. They listen more than they talk. They want to help people win. That's about caring, and it's about...
So now, I have certain more concepts to give on this particular video. So the man that you just saw is the man called Ken Blanchard. He is the man who actually has started out or actually put forward the concept in a much better way, in a further stance, after certain years. So I have just started screen sharing again. Yeah. So what is your differentiating factor that makes sure that servant leadership is worthy enough to practice? Now, I'd just like to give you an example. As Mr. Blanchard said very clearly, that first thing about good leadership is, well, I would say that I have been really lucky and privileged to have been grown in an environment where I've seen really effective leadership. And by effective leadership, I just mean one thing, and that is first being a good human being. And by being just a good human being, I would like to give you an example about three people that I see very closely in my life every day. One of them is my Mamaji, my maternal uncle. Second is my Chachaji, my paternal uncle. And the third is my paternal sister, my Bua. Now, what exactly do I see in them is that first, probably you will be thinking that servant leadership can act only in one particular field. That's completely wrong. Servant leadership can be acted in almost every field that you see, starting from corporate world to banks to healthcare to any other things. So I'll just give you an example. My Mamaji is a bank manager at a really senior level, at a senior position. My Chacha is one of the best doctors, a surgeon, a general surgeon in India. And my Bua is currently the finest and the leading naturopath doctor currently. So now when I see that how do they perceive of how do they approach people is what changes the whole perspective about this. When you see that, when you see the patients of my chacho, when you ask them and when you just see that how exactly do you feel while you converse with them, the only and only answer that I've always heard is most of the times ke ame sahib paase aiye. When we go to sir, most of our problems are resolved just by talking to him. He's that fun. He makes it so simple for everybody just to convey to him all of his problems, all of his, and that's what makes a good leader. That's what makes sure that the leader will also start perceiving that these are the problems and this is the exact thing I have to target. So now when I look at this, this is what I mean by servant leadership. First, being a good human being. Then you just make sure that what is your differentiating factor. And by that, by differentiating factor, you can also have that you have amazing listening skills. You have amazing communicating skills. And I'll come to that in the next slide. This quote is from my most favorite movie. It's called The Alexander. Alexander the Great. The first rule of war is to do what you ask your men to do. By this is the quote that his guru, his warcraft teacher taught him. And that is that before you do something on your own, how can you expect your people to do the same thing or the things that you've ordered? And by this, I would like to give you an example about my father. Now, what happens is that I'm currently sitting in an organization, right? When I was sitting in my family business, and when I had actually got a rapport with the people, with the staff that were working in since a long time, when I actually tried to just think and feel that how would my father would have acted at this particular situation, I started asking questions. Now, what was my first question is that how do they feel about my father? There was one particular note that actually caught my eye, that caught my ear as well, that how this is the thing, what differentiates him, my father, from the others that I have seen. The person tells me that at a given point in time, the people who have been close to me, they know that we have been at a really bad phase in our life, may it be personal or professional, at a given point in time. So at that time, when all of these bad things were happening inside the business at the given point in time, how did my father react? So what happened is that whenever there was a meeting which was going to be really bad, and my father would have ordered these people, my members in my staff, to go there and just attend the meeting. They would say that we would be so scared because we are not really sure of what to convey, and we are still unsure about how exactly can we portray the organization at that point in time. But the very next statement that he said was that whenever sir used to accompany us, we were so much at ease, even though how much bad the meeting was going to go. But it's just that he put himself as a rock in between us. And by being that rock, he would make sure that if there was any criticism on our part, he would take it on him. And if it was any reward that was going on, he would share it. So this is how the whole concept of servant leadership starts out, is that you take the criticism on you first. You have the capacity to take the criticism on you. And when it comes down to getting the reward, make sure that you distribute it in with people so that people need to know that this person has the capacity to even share the reward and has the capacity to take the liability on himself, right? So if I'm making sure, I'll just move on to the next slide. Now, everybody would have heard about this concept. It's called the parent concept. By parent concept, what do we see is, as you can see the evolution cycle, we started off as monkeys, and everybody would have heard the story of how exactly does the cap seller gets the caps back. He just throws his cap down and all the other monkeys do it. Do you know what? As we've evolved from monkeys, that's the exact thing that we have been doing since the beginning, since we were born. From the beginning, how do we cultivate our value systems? How do we start thinking about certain perceptions? Or how do we start judging things? It's dependent upon how do we imbibe the qualities from the people who are in and around us. So let's just imagine that at a given point in time, when I saw my father and he was doing certain things at a given point in time, and I would look at him and say that this is a cool thing to do. Why should I not replicate and imbibe it in myself as well? That's how we have been growing. So the first answer, the first question is how do we grow up or how do we do what we do? That's specifically by looking at others that are around us. Now, which qualities do we exhibit are also dependent upon the value systems that we've actually grown with. The problems and the solutions that have been developed in the family. Let's just imagine that when you say, most of the people would say, man, you are exactly behaving like your father. You are exactly behaving like your mother. See, it might not be the prerogative. It might not be the thing that you were supposed to do, but it's just that you have saw it and you did not even know that you've already imbibed it in yourself. So that's how the parent concept works. At this point, when I was young, I always used to ask my father. My father was almost every day busy. He would probably leave for factory or the office even before I and my sister would have woken up, and probably might come back while we would have slept. So I asked him a question once. Then why was he not giving us time as well? Even we needed more time. Even we are his kids. So he just told me one very simple thing, and that's how exactly will the process of the whole presentation is going to flow now. He says that Viraj, you're my son. Rajvi is my daughter. The same ways you have your father and mother with you. The same ways the company was also developed by me. So I am also a parent to it. I need to make sure that the company needs to have the right value systems placed in it so that the company ran well. You have an excellent mother, and that's why you are able to proceed forward gradually with the right qualities, and I completely believe in it. So by that time I need to give that much amount of time with my brain baby as well, and that is my company. I understood one very important concept at that time, then why not we start looking at companies also like they were babies. They will also imbibe the qualities or the values that you are going to impart or the ones that they're going to see. Now, by the organization or by the company, I also mean by the accounting principle that a company is a separate and a legal entity. Separate entity. So basically, it's a different person. So if you start dealing it as a different person, there are so many people who are working in it. So you need to be a parent for a person who's working inside your company, even though how much elder to you he is. Let's just imagine that I have a person working in my company who's 20 years elder to me. But if by any chance I want him to perceive that I am going to give an order and that person has to follow it, that person needs to have that kind of a respect for me. And that respect can be imbibed by this parent concept. So I'll come down to the next part, and that is the tenets of servant leadership. Tenets are simply the characteristics of what differentiates servant leadership from all the other basic leadership that we see. First is service to others, just the ones that we've seen. A servant leader's primary motivation and purpose is to encourage greatness in others, while organizational success is the indirect, derived outcome of servant leadership. I don't think so that I need to explain much on this because I've already done that. So the first tenet is service to others. The first thing is you want to do it just because you want to serve people. It finds you happiness. It gives you meaning that just by serving others, we are actually making a total objective of how exactly will the company achieve it, how exactly will the family achieve it. So make sure that when you talk about the company, it might be your personal life, it might be an organization, it might be any other community that you're currently in. So when you want to start out, start trying to be a good human first. And by that I mean is that try serving others. The second is the holistic approach towards work. The theory promotes a view that individuals should be encouraged to be who they are in their professional as well as personal lives. Now, I was talking to one of my finest friends. His name is Viraj Shukla. He's currently working as a really fine executive in Tata International, in Tata Group. So he told me about one thing that was currently going on in Tata that actually was really astonishing that a company can even think this way about his employees, about their employees. He told that there's a system called TAS that is working on in Tata, that is Tata Administrative Services. Now, just like civil services, Tata has its own administrative service portal. Now, what does it do is, obviously, it has a testing background. First of all, it tests the candidate that can be a part of TAS. With this task, it's actually helping out that let's just imagine that one of the candidates got selected and the person is given an opportunity to move around almost every kind of business that Tata is in. Let's just imagine that maybe in coffee making, there is Starbucks, maybe in Jaguar Land Rover, maybe in TCS, maybe there are so many other businesses that are going on by Tata. So by task you can do is you can move around and have a holistic approach towards everything. Finally, when you want that career objective, that this is how and this is the place that I want to work in, task will help you get there. So this is how a company needs to make sure that it needs to retain people with it. So this is how I would conceptualize of how holistic approach to work can be. Third is promoting a sense of community. Well, I would say that I would just give you an example on this. Just before a month, people who know me, they know this, that I have a habit that I will directly, if by any chance there's a person who's developing a business, I'll directly get to them and say that, see, that if there's anything that I can be helpful with, please don't even think for a single moment. Tell me. That's the first part that I do. But now, just before a month, one of my contacts, they had put up a story that they're starting a new venture. So I just messaged them that if there's anything that I can be helpful with, please do not hesitate, just get over to me. The person did not even reply. Now I was shocked that why exactly was this even the kind, why would a person not reply? The first thing is that we have been, the current generation specifically that we are in, we have been developed with that kind of a sense that why would a person want to help me? I get it. I seriously get it. When a person tries to get close to you or tries to help you in some way or the other, the first thing that our surroundings has made us think about is that why is the person trying to help me out? Probably he needs something from me. The day you get yourself on that page that you help someone without the expectation of getting any help in return, that will be the happiest day of your life. Believe me, I have been there and I would like to practice it each and every day. So that is promoting a sense of community. And by that, when you come down to a personal growth level, many of you might not be entrepreneurs. Many of you might not be currently working in an organization, but want to just develop yourself in the personal background of how are you going to do it? By the sense of community, I mean that why not get to them when they need some help? Just be a part of it and don't flaunt it. It is just because you want to gain happiness out of it that if a person is getting benefited just because of your input, what's a better excuse to do something else? So that is promoting a sense of community. Fourth is sharing of power in decision making. Well, effective servant leadership is best evidenced by cultivation of servant leadership in others, by nurturing participatory, empowering environments and encouraging the talents of followers. Now, if just like Yash in the very beginning had said, that what differentiates this leadership in comparison to every other leadership is it does not look at the traditional approach. It does not look at the servant and the leader kind of a philosophy. It specifically looks at of how I can help the other person to get at the same pedestal and we both can achieve it together. When you do that, that person is actually, you are actually being a bridge in between two things. First is the person and the second is their goal. If you're being a bridge in between it, the first thing that you will gain is the trust of that person. And that's the most important part of how exactly does servant leadership work. The people need to have trust in you that I'll just fold my sleeve and I'll get on to the work with it. The first thing what my father told is that when we had a really shortage of workers in the factory, sometimes you need, even though how much ever pedestal you are at, that does not make sense. The thing that makes sense to people who are working there is how exactly does Mr. Shukla perceive us? He just rolled up his sleeve, he got there, he started picking up the cartons and he started putting it in the truck. He's exactly doing the work that we are doing. Why can't we do this? Why can't we see ourselves in a position of making sure that this will lead to make sure that people will start trusting us? And you'll see the complete change in how people perceive you, how people start respecting you in every other way. So now people will ask me that how to practice it, Viraj. This is the resultant factor. How do you practice it? And quite a lot of people still think that it is dependent upon your knowledge, your education, and your current placement in the organization. Let's just imagine that you can only practice it when you are the CEO, you are the CFO, or probably the MD, or probably the chief in some way, some department or the other. Please get this concept out. The thing that people need to understand is a leader does not always go by age, does not go by the position in an organization, does not go by work experience, does not go by education, and does not go by the background. It always has been dependent upon how can you make the other person feel that you are theirs, you are together. How can you make that person believe it? All it ever takes is courtesy, which I seriously see which I seriously see every day in the individuals that I meet. That courtesy is lacking. Why can't we get back to people? If they have asked us a question, why can't we get back? If they have a problem with it, why can't we just get back and say, I'm really sorry that I don't have a solution for this, but I can definitely try. Just by saying this, you are making the whole different picture in that person's head. And by this, I would really like to say that leadership does not always come with that perspective that you are at a position. I'll just give you an example that just like the time that I said that we were having a really bad crisis in our business. Uh, Obviously, at that point in time, there were going to be certain problems and clashes with the governmental departments, with the worker staff, and all of these things. And at that point in time, my father was not there. So I was sitting right next to his chair, and the officer of the Provident Fund department and all of these people were coming over. So he just came there and he started asking questions that why has this not been paid up? Why hasn't this been done? And he was pretty cool about it. He did not shout or he did not do anything that could have scared me off because I was very new to the field. I did not even know that how could I even talk to a person when he did not even have the authority, or probably when even I was not there in the organization. I did the same thing that any human would have done. I started expressing my thoughts into making that person believe that my father is a very responsible man. Please don't think that my father would do this intentionally. There are certain problems that the company is facing, and we want to make sure that all of these doubts, all of these problems are sorted out as soon as possible. When I started making a picture of my father in front of him, he told me, Mr. Shukla, just stop for a second. I know your father. And why do I know your father and how do I know it is just before 5 years, when you were at that top in the field, when there was no company like your father's company. I have been here at that point as well. Now, what happened at that point in time is that my wife was with me. And at that point in time, what happened is that I was just talking to your father. He was explaining and he was giving certain amount of time, even though he had all the authority and the right to not entertain us. What did he do was that my father is a smoker. So while he was smoking, he just got out of the factory while they were leaving. And at that point in time, there was certain construction work going out of the factory. And immediately his sandal broke, the sandal that this person was wearing. And without even thinking now, that would have been a very instinctive thought that my father would have had. But this person has remembered it even after 5 years and has met my father only once in his life. Now, what did my father do is, he without even thinking removed his shoes and gave the shoes to him. Now, for a second, I started thinking that if I had been at this position, would I have done that? That was my first reference to servant leadership. And that is, how can you serve others and make sure that the person remembers you, even with just one instance, and they remember you for a lifetime. How are you going to differentiate yourself with that is how you need to make sure that the people perceive you. So it is definitely going to be helpful in your personal and professional relationship. I have a small video to show you. So the video that I'm going to show you is probably most of you would have seen. It's probably one of the finest actors that has really made our childhood really good. The first Jumanji movie that was made. Yeah, it is him. So while he's saying just for all the times when he says a doctor, just replace the word doctor with the word leader. That's all I'm asking you to do. Yeah. So we'll just get on. Yash, I'm sure that everybody is able to hear me, right?
Yeah, loud and clear, Viraj.
Yeah.
Just the thing, you'll have to stop sharing again.
Yep.
and play with you.
Thank you for being this man. You already know that I am a real bad techno-savvy person.
No problem. There for
Yeah.
you.
So I just get over to the videos. Yeah. Yep. Now,
You've been accused of practicing medicine without a license. It's a very grave charge, son. Are you aware that it's unlawful to practice medicine without a medical license?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you aware that running a medical clinic without the proper licensing can place both you and the public in a great deal of danger?
Is a home a clinic, sir?
If you are admitting patients and treating them, physical location is irrelevant.
Yes, sir. Will you define treatment for me?
Yes, treatment would be defined as the care of a patient seeking medical attention. Have you been treating patients, Mr. Adams?
Well, sir, I live with several people. They come and go as they please. I offer them whatever help I can.
Mr. Adams, have you or have you not been treating patients at your ranch?
Everyone who comes to the ranch is a patient, yes. And every person who comes to the ranch is also a doctor.
I'm sorry.
Every person who comes to the ranch is in need of some form of physical or mental help. They're patients. But also every person who comes to the ranch is in charge of taking care of someone else. Whether it's cooking for them, cleaning them, or even a simple task as listening. That makes them doctors. I use that term broadly, gentlemen, but is not a doctor someone who helps someone else? When did the term doctor get treated with such reverence as, oh, right this way, Dr. Smith, or, excuse me, Dr. Scholes, what wonderful foot pads, or, pardon me, Dr. Patterson, but your flatulence has no odor. At what point in history did a doctor become more than a trusted and learned friend who visited and treated the ill? Now, you ask me if I've been practicing medicine. Well, if this means opening your door to those in need, those in pain, caring for them, listening to them, applying a cold cloth until a fever breaks, if this is practicing medicine, if this is treating a patient, then I am guilty as charged, sir.
Did you consider the ramifications of your actions? What if one of your patients had died?
What's wrong with death, sir? What are we so mortally afraid of? Why can't we treat death with a certain amount of humanity and dignity and decency and, God forbid, maybe even humor? Death is not the enemy, gentlemen. If we're going to fight a disease, let's fight one of the most terrible diseases of all, indifference. Now, I've sat in your schools and heard people lecture on transference and professional distance. Transference is inevitable, sir. Every human being has an impact on another. Why don't we want that in a patient-doctor relationship? That's why I've listened to your teachings and I believe they're wrong. A doctor's mission should be not just to prevent death, but also to improve the quality of life. That's why you treat a disease, you win, you lose. You treat a person, I guarantee you'll win, no matter what the outcome.
yes. So just a second. So, as I just said, you can practice one thing that I always do. And most of the people who know me would know it, that this is the thing that I've always been doing. That is, that whenever a person is in requirement of a help, or probably they're not able to tell it to you, just do one thing. Call them once and say, see, if you have a problem, why don't you tell me? There is a possibility that I might not be able to help you. But there's definitely a possibility of 50% that I might be able to help you. If you don't tell me, the probability is definitely 0%. So if you tell me the problem, at least I have that thing imprinted in my mind that if at a given point in time I'm able to meet a person who will be able to cure this, I'll directly get both of you in touch. So this is how you develop a relation. And that is just by making sure that you care for them. Just make sure that the people you are talking to, make them feel that you care for them without the expectation of getting anything in return. Please make sure that this is a very well stated truth in your mind. So, what attributes brings us closer to practice it? I would always say that, see, if you can see the primary attributes involve listening, empathy, and all, and resultant attributes possess persuasion, healing, and stuff. Now, what Mr. Greenleaf has said, he has not distributed this. This is my way of perceiving that of how a person can become a servant leader. These are the attributes, according to me, of how they can help you in making sure that the people start trusting you. Yeah. So the primary attributes, if you can see right down there, I have written you can start this right away because it does not require any particular skill set to do it. You just require an intent in the heart that I want to start this. First is listening. Many people, and by listening, please make sure that I am developing the definition of listening as not to answer back. But listening is the practice of making sure that you understand the problem or the concept what the person is saying. By this, I mean listening. And by that, you understand the concept of what exactly might the person be thinking at that point in time. Second is empathy. By empathy, I do not mean sympathy. Please, empathy is the word. By empathy, I mean you start placing yourself in the foot of the other and just try and make sure that, and just think that what is that person feeling at that given point in time. The third is conceptualization. Conceptualization is when you get in an organization, or probably you've just developed your own organization. We all have dreams. We all have certain things inside our head that this is how I would like the organization to look. So you conceptualize from the right from the beginning. You already have a dream when you start out. And that dream should be, you'll be able to conceptualize that this is how the organization that I'm looking at. Obviously, it's not the way that you've thought, or probably the way that you wanted. But what's the point in it if you've already got the winning team on your side? The true leadership can always be acknowledged by that fact that you're able to conceptualize and work on that particular fact, and the organization turns out to be like that, and it wins, and it successes. The fourth is stewardship. By stewardship, steward has a very common definition in the dictionary. It says the protector of assets. By protector of assets, I always mean the human resource, the costliest human resource. And by costliest, I don't mean money. The costliest resource, by costliest resource, I mean it can be the biggest liability as well as the biggest asset for your company. And how will you be able to do it is servant leadership is the answer for it. Now, if you see the primary attributes, you will be able to start it right away. Now, towards the right-hand side are the resultant attributes. If you start listening, you will come to know that these are the problems in the statement that the person has used. Now you will start thinking about the solutions of how you will be able to persuade that this is how I'm going to convince this person into believing certain things that I have in my mind. Obviously, it's not easy. But for that, if you would look at the top, I have put up an arrow called accompanying attributes. I'll come over to that. That accompanying attributes is the factor in which you will be able to lead from primary to the resultant attributes. Second is healing. When I combine it with empathy, why would I say is that obviously, let's just imagine that when you have a problem, why is it always favorable to talk to a third party? Is because you get a fresh perspective out of it. If you continuously think about the problem inside your own self, you will not be able to find the solution even though it is right next to you. That is the point. So with this, with empathy, when I stand at the person's place and think that these are the problems, I have a better place to stand and say and see that this might be how this can be healed. Third is conceptualization, and I've directly put it up with foresight. By conceptualizing the whole material, and this is how the organization needs to look, I have a foresight that this is how it needs to go. By foresight, I mean the company needs to have its own vision and mission. Vision is the long-term goal, the primary, the objective, that this is how the organization needs to function. Mission is your short-term goals that help you achieve towards the vision, right? So if you look at that, I have a bigger circle in between, and that is called convince. I have a small perspective over this. Whenever people tell me, see, I have what I can consider from this is that I have always been really good at persuasion because I try and listen to people, and I think that this is how I can persuade them because I have a thought in my mind already while the person is speaking that yes, this is the answer. And for that, I also have a video here. But for that, if you look at the convincing aspect, I have a small perspective to give all of you. If you are convinced about one topic, there cannot be a possibility that you cannot convince the other person there. If you are convinced about it. If you are not sure about the idea, let's just imagine that you have a business idea, you have a business plan, and you are like, man, the concept looks really good, but will it work? Will it work? I'm not really sure. But when you put it forward and the person starts asking questions about it, there's always going to be a point where you nudge, because even you are still not completely convinced that the business idea is, does it matter? Is it going to make a difference? So until and unless you aren't convinced about it, you won't be able to persuade anybody. You won't be able to heal someone. You would not be able to make sure that you have a foresight for the company. And that's how exactly it's dependent upon getting the commitment to growth of people. So as you see, I have put a caps locked thing in the end, that is awareness and building community. If you look at the primary attributes and resultant attributes, it is leading towards awareness and building a community. If you have these factors or attributes together, that is how the organization will do. The organization will have awareness of where it's exactly going, and it will have a sense of community that, see, if I am progressing, the other is also progressing. In totality, the organization is progressing. And in that way, I'm making sure that I'm really making myself a really good future out of it. So I'll just get down to the video that I have here. This is a very short video, but you'll love it because it's one of the finest movies you would have seen.
साहब,
क्या हुआ त्रिलोक सिंह?
नीचे देखने से चक्कर आते हैं।
एक काम कर, नीचे मत देख।
जी साहब।
So as you just saw, the movie Lux part, if you see, the person has such a small doubt, but for him, it is a real big thing. It's a real big deal. All it ever took from the leader was just to listen. If you just start listening, the first objective, even though I completely agree, that how will you be able to persuade the person right from the beginning? But the process starts with listening. Just listen to their problems. Let's just imagine that you are getting inside a family business. The first attribute that you need to have is listening, because there are going to be so many problems that the staff or that has been existing since a long time. They have already a developed set of rules that this is how they want to progress. They are not willing to get a newer idea in this, the newer idea that you are bringing, even though you are right. There's always going to be that difference of opinion. So for that, you need to start out with listening. Once you start listening, you will come to know that their concepts are this, and this is how they want to move forward. After that, you will come to know that this is the major problem where they are stuck up. If I am able to bring this kind of a thing inside it, I'll be able to convince them into believing that the idea that I am bringing inside the company is valuable and can really help the organization in a way. Yep. Now, the most relevant question. But Viraj, what to listen if the person does not share what they feel? I get it. For that, you need to make someone your friend. If they need to share their personal stuff with you, if you want them to share their problems with you, only after that you'll be able to listen, right? Please, I have a very important advice that my mother always used to tell me. Badda j lokon ni andar, even though every person at any pedestal in their life always has a child in them, always, and you just need to pick that one attribute that in which way the person can be molded, or you can directly get in there. Now, what do we do as children if we wanted to make a friend? Please know this compulsorily. How much ever educated, experienced, knowledgeable the person sitting next to you or above is, there is one point where this person is a child. For me, a conversation opener has always been food. I am not a big foodie, but food has always been the kind of a thing. I had already talked about this concept, and that is, how do you open a tiffin? If you want to make sure that you start making a friend, what you will do is you go to a place, and let's just imagine that you're working in an organization and you want the trust of your immediate leader or immediate supervisor. He's not talking to you, or probably you might not have gelled up yet. The first thing that I would really want you all to do is, when it's lunchtime, just go down there and sit. Obviously, it's required, right? And when you sit there, just open your tiffin and say, "Sir, would you like to have it?" This small thing is going to change the perspective of what this person feels. You're sharing the trust and you're sharing the happiness that you have with this person. The max that person will do is, "No, I don't want it." The second thing that you can do is, "Sir, I really like that you're having in your tiffin. Can I just have a bite of it?" The point is that I was going to tell my mother to make it, but somehow, some way or the other, I think so it might be done after some time. But I think so I would really like to have that. With this, you can start a conversation. And if you see, and to prove this, a new study published in the Journal of Science and Personal Relations, it says, recently calculated, on average, it takes about 50 hours of time with someone to make them a casual friend, 90 hours before someone becomes your real friend, and about 200 hours to become your close friend. Now, what this organization suggests is, even if that person is your real friend, they'll start sharing their doubts in relation to the company, and they'll start sharing their problems with you. That is exactly what we need. And that is exactly what a leader needs, is that he needs problems. Because until and unless you aren't able to solve something, you can't gain trust from the people you want to lead, or you want these people to follow. That's the most basic thing, right? And if you have matching interests, the time can be hard. I would not be joking on this. The last line, I have added it. Sorry to say that, but I have added it. But if I personally put myself inside this position, I have done that. I have made sure that the person has got very close to me just within 100 days. That is 1 hour of every lunch with him. Within those 100 hours, or within those 45 hours, I've made him talk to me about what exactly are the problems that he perceives inside this company. Now, as I had said in the previous slide, we had talked about something called accompanying attributes. So you can see that on the right hand side. But if you see very closely, you'll be able to see that accompanying attributes were also a part somewhere inside your primary attributes, I'll get back, as well as your resultant attributes. So listening, if you see here, it is also a part of accompanying attributes, and persuasion C is also a part of accompanying attributes. Now you will say, this is such a clumsy diagram, Viraj. Why would you even think of this? I have a very simple thing. See, when we are born, we all come with certain sets of skills. Some way or the other, there is going to be one thing out of these accompanying attributes that you are really holding a forte of. Either you are really good at communication, either you are really good at making others feel that you have a really credible position, or you have credibility while you talk. The other is competence. The fourth is stewardship. Fifth is visibility. Sixth is influence. Seventh is persuasion. The other is listening, encouragement, teaching, and delegation. See, when it comes down to something like influence, when you were kids, there was always going to be one kid inside the class who might not have done any other thing, but still he's able to influence everybody else. So that is the inborn talent that this person has, the inborn skills that he has been developed with. So out of this, just try and make sure that which is your accompanying attribute that is going to help you to that resultant attribute, which is going to help you build a community. Once you build a community, you have gained the trust of everybody, and that's when people will start noticing what you're going to say, right? Now, towards the left-hand side, what you see here are functional attributes. Functional attributes is, for a second, just put the servant out of the servant leadership aside. All you get is leadership. When you talk about functional leadership, these attributes are the most common in every leadership that you see. The first is vision and modeling. I've done the same thing. I've combined two different concepts here, two different attributes here. First is vision and modeling. By vision, you are able to model the organization that you want. Second is honesty and integrity. Now, if while you were kids and you saw your father lying on the phone, कि नहीं भैया मैं तो यहाँ पे हूँ, मैं यहाँ पे नहीं हूँ. That imprinted in your mind that I can say this at a given point in time. But when it comes down to organization, whatever you do, all the other peers, all the other colleagues are going to see what you're doing. So when you have honesty, you are able to develop an integrity towards everything that's going on in the organization. So honesty obviously comes with a cost. But if that cost is worthy enough to sacrifice, I would say that go for it. Always be honest about the things, whether you have done it or not. Try and accept it on you. Once you've done that, integrity is something that you'll achieve. The third is trust and pioneering. By trust and pioneering, I have a very good concept. I had a medicine right here. By trust and pioneering, I don't only mean the attributes that you can have with your own personal self. By trust and pioneering, I also mean that when you are in a company, either the company is giving a service or making a product. That's the most common thing that we see, right? By trust, I mean that if I have people around me right now and I have a headache, as you all know that I have a pharma company. I have a headache and there is a normal diclopara combination lying just next to me. I take that medicine which was manufactured by our company and I take it and I have it. By that I mean that I trust my company completely with what I am going to have. If it's my company and until and unless I am not trustworthy about my own product, how can I even perceive that the people are going to sell it for me? So the first thing that the important thing that a leader needs to develop is trust about their own service and product as well. And that's when you'll pioneer, because when you have developed a product or a service that's going to be really strong in their own concept, you'll start getting the appreciation from you'll start getting the things from the market that the product is really good. And that's when you start developing that inner thought inside people, that what is expected from them is that you will make a trustworthy product. Any हम लोग जो बोलते हैं 19-20 उसके अंदर नहीं चलेगी. When you start doing this is probably one of the biggest attribute of a functional leader. That is, you have the trust and you have a thing of pioneering inside this particular point. When you have a startup, I have a service. Let's just imagine a transportation service. And I am still not convinced about that while the product is being transported from one place to the other, the client's product, it might be damaged. I still have that kind of a feeling, but I will let it go. Let's see what happens. If this topic continues and the people who are currently in your startup team, they'll completely get it that my own leader is thinking this way, कि चल जाएगा एक बार. If that chal jayega attitude continuously repeats itself, you will have repercussions in the future. And that's completely a based truth. That if you don't make sure that your team needs to trust their own product, you will not be able to sell it. The other comes down service and appreciation. For a second, if by any chance someone can just put up the photo of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I have a photo here in my mobile. If I'm not really sure if you'll be able to see it. But I'm so sure that everybody would have seen of how this table looks like, of how this triangle looks like. If you see, the esteem needs are on the 4th level of pedestal. That means before self-actualization, that is the highest order a person can be bestowed with. So when you have an organization and you start giving appreciation and start giving esteem towards that person who has done a really fine service inside your organization, that's when you will know that the person is trying to get attached to the organization. He'll feel motivated. She'll feel motivated to do something more for the organization. So until and unless you don't have the capacity to appreciate others, you cannot be a leader. You cannot ever be a person who can be trusted. The first part, when it comes over that if a person has done something really good, you need to start appreciating. Why is it so difficult for people our age to appreciate the others? How much time does it take? It takes, I am really proud of you. That is all you have to say. If you say this, the person will start feeling that this man has the time to come over or at least just message to me that he feels really proud of me, even though he does not know me well. But just because of the things that I'm putting up or the services that I'm delivering, if he's finding it really well, I am sure that I'm doing something relevant. I'm doing something really good. So to develop that sense of community, to develop that sense of trust, this is very, very important. And you can start out even at the lowest level. Why can't you do that with your manager? Let's just imagine that I'll give you an example. I was working in a pharma company at a given point in time. I have had the work experience there. Now what happened is that our immediate superiors might be possible have been fired up by the bosses, by some problem that your immediate supervisor would have gone through. While you are going for lunch, why don't you just go there and ask them, sir, is everything fine? Can I be helpful in any way? If I can be, please do let me know. I would really like to do that because I personally feel that when I look at you in the organization, I seriously feel that you have a really very credible position. And at a certain point in time, I really feel that the company values me the way it values you. Just by this small concept, it's going to change how the person feels about you, thinks about you. And by this, you're achieving the organizational empowerment. If you just put the organization aside and just put your own personal thing, it also leads to personal empowerment. By personal empowerment, you're building that community for you, that when you are in crisis, people are going to just drop down, just going to be there with you. how much amazing it would be if by any chance you're facing a problem and there are 5 people coming over to you. Are you fine? Can I be helpful? Just saying this and being there for someone is probably the biggest thing that you can do for someone. Now, sorry, I have a video here as well. Just a second.
There's three key aspects of being a leader, being a manager. One is clear goals. All good performance starts with clear goals. And so people around you, if you want to make a difference in their lives, they need to know what they're trying to accomplish. Second, once the goals are clear, you ought to wander around and see if you can catch them doing something right and give them a 1 minute praising, acknowledging what they've done, tell them how you feel about what they've done, how it's impacted you, and that's really important. And then if their performance isn't going exactly the way you both wanted, you give them what we call now a 1 minute redirect. So to say, gee, I'm observing your performance here, and I don't think it's as good as we thought it would be. Do you agree? And they usually will, because you're not there to punish them. And then you say, what could I do to help you get back on track? One of the important things about being an effective leader is to enter your day slowly with some sense of intent and think about what's on my schedule today. How do I want to be seen today? And then at the end of the day, put praisings in your journal. What did you do today that you feel really good about? And then redirections. What did you do that you'd love to replay? And that'll maybe set a goal for you the next day. I think a good manager is more intentional in their behavior, not caught in the rat race. And the problem with the rat race is even if you win it, you're still a rat. I like to look at it, the difference between success and significance. I think when people are focusing on success, they're thinking about how much money they make, the recognition they get for their efforts and their power and status. When that's who you think you are, the only way you can maintain your feelings of self-worth is to get more of those. And I think then you miss significance, which to me, the opposite of making money is generosity of your time, your talent, your treasure. Add a fourth one, touch, reaching out to people. What's the opposite of recognition? It's service. And what's the opposite of power and status? It's loving relationships. Because when all is said and done in life, when you're gone and you die, the only thing you get to take with you is your soul. And that's where you store who you love and who loved you.
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Viraj, loud and clear.
Yeah. So I'll just move forward. What if I don't know what to say or what to ask? Now, this is the main question that I had encountered. As you might be knowing, I have not been from the pharma field. I have studied management. I have not been from the textile field or from the transportation field who could have known the aspects of how exactly does this business work. So for me, the main concept of how I moved forward was this. The most powerful words you will ever use would be, what do you think? While you are at a credible position or you are not, the most important part that you give or the most important credibility you give to the other person is when you ask about their opinions. What do you think about this? When you get these opinions, you will come to know that this is how it's moving and this is what now I need to target. It has really helped me a lot. So what after that? Now let us imagine that there is a Mr. X in my team. I will bring it forward when the team is meeting together. And now let's just imagine, okay, that there's a problem. And I am discussing it with the team that this is the problem. What can we do? What should we doing? What should we be doing? Now, the first stance that I will take as a leader or the person who's at a credible position is, I will start calling each and everyone from the team personally first. I'll get to know their views and their suggestions on how exactly can this problem be countered. I will bring it forward when the team is meeting together. Now let's just imagine that Mr. X gave me a solution and I thought that it is a credible solution. It is something, or probably not even a credible solution, but he was the only one who gave me a solution. So now what do I do is I just put forward the merits and demerits of it. And when I meet the team the next time, what will I do is I will bring that forward by using the name of Mr. X. That this man has given me the suggestion that this is how the problem can be countered. Now, wait for a few minutes. The first thing that you'll see is Mr. X will start thinking that I had just given it to sir for the matter. I didn't know that he'll directly talk to the management like this only, or the team like this. At the same point in time, the team will start thinking that this is not the right way to move forward. Nah, I have a better solution. These would be the things that are going on inside the mindset of Mr. X and the team. These two are different entities now. And the semi-end statement that you need to use now is, I second that. I feel it's a really good suggestion given by Mr. X. Now what you're doing is you're completely changing the perspective of how both of these entities are feeling. Mr. X will start feeling completely highly of himself that, man, the leader thinks right of me. He thinks his suggestion is really good. So now he has come over to that topic now. And the others have started feeling, now I cannot tell the suggestion that I had inside my mind, or I cannot directly counter it, because now the leader only agrees to him. What if I make a fool out of myself? What if I make a suggestion and seriously make a fool out of myself? That this is not the right way to move forward. Now, this is a semi-ending statement. Let the people be in that state, that zone for some time. This will lead to two notes, right? Two notes in the participants of the team. First is, if I had given a suggestion, there might have been a possibility that Mr. Shukla, that is the leader, or probably the any person who's credible at this given position, would have quoted me in front of the team. And I would have been feeling highly. This is the most basic human nature. Everybody wants acknowledgement. Even though for the things that they have done or not, everybody wants acknowledgement. And you need to think of that if you want a team to work in a coalition, there are going to be problems like these. The first is that they'll start thinking that if I had given a suggestion, it might have been a possibility that I would have been quoted in front of the team. Second is, there is a possibility that someone from the team already had a better solution. There is a possibility. Definitely there is a possibility that there was definitely someone who had a better solution, but they did not give it. Might be the problems that they might not be feeling very accustomed to me or the leader at that point in time. Second also might be that he had the same solution that Mr. X had given. And the third would be that there was a difference of opinion with Mr. X. Right? These might be the three possibilities in the second note. But why would people come ahead if the leader has already said that he or she agrees with Mr. X now? That is the point that you need to change now. This is not a good position to be in, because most of the organizations that you see that are going forward with the traditional leadership stops at this stage to the maximum level. They start making sure that Mr. X keeps rising in his ranks, while the other part of the team starts losing its spirit, because they'll start feeling that the leader already has a soft corner for this person now. But that's not how team coalition works. This is how team spirit loses, right? So what you're going to do is you need to come out of that rat race. And to make sure that you are considered as a different and a developed organization, there is something else you need to do. Now I'm moving towards the end statement that you're going to use. And that is, what do you all think? I'm coming back to the same question that I had. But now with the perspective that everybody has the opportunity of telling them. With Mr. X, nobody can actually, directly contradict Mr. X in front of the team by making him feel low. I have made myself a bridge now in front of these two entities, so the person can directly not contradict Mr. X, as well as Mr. X has the opportunity, has to give the others the opportunity that there might be a better solution. So now I have brought these two people in that one particular part. This is the most brilliant thing that you can do. Start asking the question again. What do you all think? The first process is, I think Mr. X is right. Second process is, I agree to it that yes, he has a credible note. The third is, what do you all think? By this, I am making sure that everybody is now involved inside the discussion. So as a leader, what needs to be done at this point in time is, the most important and difficult role that the leader has in this is an organization is to keep this thought at bay. Which thought? If he or she disagrees with me, that means he or she hates me. I read this very, very fine quote. What this person says, that if I have a difference of opinion from you, that does not mean that I hate you. I just do not agree with that particular statement of yours. And this needs to be instilled so much in our current generation, that if a person disagrees with our opinion, that does not mean that he or she hates us. That is specifically because that might be a possibility that they have a better solution, or probably they have a difference in opinion. So it's always better, and you can always excel in leadership when you have the capacity or have the audacity or have the guts to stand and say that, yes, please tell me your opinion, and count it as a credible opinion, not just listen the way that we are listening currently, and that is just to answer and revert back, but to listen in a way that you will think about this position. Yes, this can also be functioning really well. Now you'll go back to the leader, and probably if you are the leader personally, you'll come to know that these are the two stances. Why not use this and this as well? And if by any chance this happens, I have a point B, I have a plan B that is already ready, right? So this is how it needs to be moved forward. And this is the most tricky position for a leader. And that is how will he be able to change that mindset inside these people, that if a person in the team disagrees with them, that does not mean that they hate them. And this can only and only be possible by the attributes that they are going to use as a leader, and by being not the barrier, but being a bridge in between these two. A Mr. X, Mr. X can be anybody inside the team, and the next entity is the whole team. These two need to be on a level where they can directly contradict the leader at a given point in time. But at the same point in time, they are also deriving a solution or a conclusion that how exactly does the organization needs to move up. This can only be possible when the leader is able to incorporate that sense of our own inside the team. Like, it's my own organization. And for that, the leader needs to be the bridge of divesting these disagreements with these channels in between. Is there a sound, if I am not wrong?
Yes, Viraj, there was some sound coming up, but I think it's resolved now.
Okay, I hope that there's no question that I need to answer at this point in time, because I would love that. I would seriously love that.
There are no questions in the questions tab. So
Yeah.
participants, if you have any questions, you can put them up in the questions tab and we'll take them up.
I would love that. I am sorry that I am overshooting the time, but I promise you that it will be worth it. The journey will be worth it. So if you have any other questions, please let Yash or me know, or probably just put up in the chat box. I'll try my level best to solve it. Yeah. So now I have a video. I'll show it here. It's the last video for the thing. So
I had two completely different experiences as a cadet at the Air Force Academy in my 6 years there. You know, when I arrived in the Academy, my older brother, Steve, who's just an incredible officer, great airman, he had been the cadet wing commander when I showed up. And so I was trying to make my own way in the world. And, you know, if you're trying to make your own path and your older brother is perfect, the only avenue available to you is anti-perfect. And so I spent my first 2 years fighting the organization. And then we made a mutual decision between the Air Force Academy and Cadet Golfing that maybe I needed to leave and get my act together. And so I left and rode a 10-speed bicycle, because that's how many speeds there were available in 1980, around the country for an entire year. As I traveled around the country, and people took me in, total strangers who would come up and talk to me and bring me in, take care of me, I came to the conclusion on my own that this nation is worth defending. And I went back to the academy. And my last 2 years were a completely different experience. And the only thing that changed between the first 2 years and the last 2 years is I embraced what the academy was trying to do. And I realized that actually the world didn't revolve around Dave Goldfein, that actually I was part of something really big, and that there's opportunity to serve others. And so I offer that story to you, and then let's all of us do our own mirror check here. Where are we on our journey? Where are you on your journey? You fighting the institution, or are you embracing the institution? And as leaders, are we looking at this business of leadership from the eyes of a servant, or from the eyes of someone who feels entitled to it? And I think if we embrace the institution of values that we stand for, our airmen are going to want to follow us, because leadership is a gift, and it's given by those that we serve.
Yep. So I just have a note that I want to put up. This is specifically the question for the people who are currently my age. When we get in an organization, we always have a tendency of believing in it that we want our career advancement to be really well. While we look at the perspective of how our fathers or our parents or our grandfathers have been doing, grandparents have been doing, is their thought was always being in one organization, trying and being in one organization and making sure that the organization thrives. For us, we always started keeping ourselves before the organization. Now, what the video that you just saw, he said that the leader needs to make one particular note in front of the team that this organization is worth defending. And how will you be able to do it? How will you be able to make that kind of statement of our own inside these people that is going to change how the organization will look at you, and these people how they look at you and the organization? So on this note, I really want to tell you that we are so fast in making decisions, specifically the ones that are my age. We are so fast in making decisions, just thinking that this might not be the right way, or just because we might have miserable bosses. But if we try and have certain patience and persistence towards that one particular goal, I will always try and tend to make sure that I need to mold myself a certain bit. I cannot always have my own thing at a given point in time. For that, I received a really good advice from our partner in my pharma company. I have no background in pharma. He told me one thing. વિરાજ ઘણી બધી વખતે અભણ થઈને ભણતા શીખવું પડે. By this, I mean that sometimes you need to be an illiterate to know certain new things. And for that, I seriously request that if you want to have a really credible position in an organization, your career advancement will definitely be there. But if you devote yourself to an organization, why not give your heart and soul to it? Why not try your level best that if you don't like a certain rule in the organization of how the perspective the organization looks at, please try and imbibe the quality or the quote that Hitler had. That is, if you don't like a rule, you need to follow it. Get to the top and then change it. So when you get at the top, then change of how the organization's perspective need to look at. So I want to move forward again. Titles mean a lot in today's world. Why do I say this? Is because when we talk about a person's motivation towards the organization, there might be two ways. First one is you either increase their salary, which is, or you give them bonuses. So a monetary compensation in some way or the other. That's what really affects people. That's what organizations feel. The second is, how can you make that person feel your own? Is first, you can give them titles. Titles really honor men. So when it comes down to titles, if a person who has been doing purchase or let's just imagine a production work, or let's just imagine a sales work inside your organization since a long time, or probably who are going to start it up, why not give them titles that actually honor them? That's making them feel really appreciated or acknowledged in front of their peers and colleagues. Why is it difficult to actually just give a salesperson he's a sales executive, let's just imagine. Why is it really difficult to give them the title of a deputy manager in this particular department? Even this small thing is going to change of how a person looks at the company. These small things are really important to make sure the person feels home, right? Now, obviously, with this theory, there were going to be certain criticisms and there were going to be certain supports. Well, let's just talk about the criticisms. The first is lacks empirical data to make it scientifically proven. Yes, it is true that when we talk about certain thing to be scientifically proven, you need data, you need numbers to prove it. But when it comes down to an abstract motive of something like leadership, and that too with us being a different kind of a leader, there might be a lack of the empirical data to prove that this is scientifically proven. I agree to that. But when it comes down to my own perspective of how it has helped me, it has helped me in a tremendous way. So coming down to the second criticism, that is gender biased and looks at a long-standing masculine, feminine, or master-slave political economy. I would seriously laugh at this criticism, as I just said yes as well. Just before the thing was starting out, I said that if you know, I just tell you the name. Just a second. Do you know that Robert Greenleaf, the person who coined the statement, has actually a center named behind him, and that's a society that works on servant leadership. The CEO of this organization is a woman. So it was profusely quashed at that point in time that a woman cannot be a servant leader. A woman probably is the best example of a servant leader. The first example I would like to say is my mother. Now I would say anyone's mother, right? Let's just imagine that you were having examinations at a given point in time. During those examinations, what would your mother do is she'll make sure that you have every possible thing with you to make sure that your study goes well. That means you would have good food, you would have good internet connectivity by chance learning from there. If you are devoid of a certain book or so, she'll run to make sure that that's happening. If you have a lack of tuition classes or something, she'll run down to the teacher and say that he or she has a doubt in this. Why don't you solve it, please? Just help him out or help her out. That is the whole point. So this is profusely quashed at this point and given time that servant leadership looks at gender biased thing. So if you look at this woman, I'm really sorry, but I just, out of all of these curiosity in developing this, yeah, that is Miss Patricia Felotico. She is the woman who is currently the CEO of the organization, that is Robert Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership. If you hear her out, you'll know that how clear she is in her motives, how clear she is to develop the fact that in an organization, if you want to lead, you need to serve first, right? The third criticism is the practicality and applicability of the theory to the real world scenarios. If you see, I'm so sure that many of the faculty, if they have joined here, would agree that in any theory that we have been taught, this is the most prominent criticism that we have got in almost every theory, that it is it applicable in real life world scenarios? If I say I cannot be the person who can directly judge on this, there have been really important and influential people who have put up these criticisms. But all I can say is that at my perspective, at a local perspective, if I look at it, it has helped me. And it has helped the people who I see regularly in a way by developing the conscious in a way that everybody has respected them for what they are. Now coming over to the supports. First is focuses on the individual organizational needs as a profound moral underpinning. Obviously, it looks at the individual's part as well as the organizational part as well. So the example that I gave about TAS, that is Tata's administrative services, it looks at the individual goals as well as the organizational goals. The organization understands that until and unless the individual does not feel motivated or the progressive, how can the organization progress? The second is a leader that operates from a desire to first serve others avoids power traps by building consensus and follower empowerment. Specifically for a young leader, a young person who's going to have a credible position in an organization, you people have a very tough situation. I agree to it because I have been there too. If you are there, you're going to have tremendous amount of criticisms, either directly or indirectly. People backbitching about you. People saying this person does not even have the basic experience inside this field. How are they going to do it? But when you develop a consensus, you involve each and everybody inside your own decision making. That's when you change the perspective that this person has the capacity to even talk to us regarding this. And after looking at all of these things, he is giving a decision that has involved each and everybody's suggestions into this part. The third is position power is eroding in many organizations. Therefore, leaders must derive their influence from values. I would like to say, and I would really like to acknowledge Yash on this part. Yash, thank you so much for this because you shared a really important concept here, a really important fact here, and that was, I'm really sorry, but just a second. 9 companies which have been listed in Fortune 100 best places to work ever since the inception, since the Fortune actually started listing these companies, 7 companies out of them have been following servant leadership all throughout. So you can imagine that this is how organizations are practically now proceeding towards. That servant leadership is the new way of how can a person lead in an organization. So the other is it focuses on intellectually and spiritually strong leadership, which makes, just a second, which makes workplaces cohesive, right? So what happens is that, let's just imagine that spiritually, why can a person connect to the other is when they have similar perspectives towards things. Spiritual does not always mean God, please. Spiritual can also mean that if you have similar thinking, you get onto that front and you start talking about it. You start sharing certain perspectives that can be really helpful for the organization or your personal benefits. So when you look at, the supports are higher than criticisms. There are way more supports than this also. There is one more criticism, but I did not feel that it needs to be a part of this. But there have been really high supports to this theory. These are the books that I have read it, and I personally feel that this has helped me shape my thought about servant leadership. First is Trustees as Servants by Robert K. Greenleaf himself, right? As I said, there was an essay that he made. But when he knew that people are actually acknowledging this fact to be really true, he started developing and writing more and more on this concept. This book is really amazing. Trustees as Servants by Robert K. Greenleaf. Second is Journey to the East by Herman Hesse. In the very beginning, I told you about Mr. Herman Hesse. This is a book was written way ahead in its time. What does this book say is, it does not have a concept like servant leadership. It just talks about a person who is leading a band of people together in a forest and in unknown places. This person is doing all the regular chores for these people that are in the team. The people have started growing so fond of this person that without him, it's really difficult for them to survive. And at a given point in time, this person disappears. And slowly and gradually, all the persons in the team, they disintegrate. They were not able to hold them together. So if you see, it talks about this concept. And that is how Ms. Robert K. Greenleaf got this idea of servant leadership, of how important it is to serve people, to get the trust in you. And finally getting that perspective that without them, it is really difficult to run this organization. That is what is really important for people who are growing in their age. If you are growing in your age, even though you have a startup, you have a family business, you have a organization that you're currently working in, or you're just going to start out. If you have started making your own credibility inside this organization by making the others feel that his suggestions are credible, he's really helpful in every way, and he's there when the company needs it, your credibility in the organization will start increasing. And that's what the exact perspective of servant leadership is. The fourth is Slaves of the Most High God, a biblical model of servant leadership in the slave imagery of Luke Acts by Timothy Cottrell, right? This talks about Jesus. Who better than Jesus could have been the portrayal of a person who has been a servant too, who has been at a pedestal that how was he treated? But still, why would people believe in him? Why would still people believe that they need to follow this person? The rest is history. All of these things have shaped my thought of how exactly servant leadership occurs. Now, the final slide. There are no born heroes. You can also put up leaders. It takes a hammer, a chisel, a vision, and a will to suffer the blows and be carved into one. This is my most favorite quote. So as you can see, I have been putting it everywhere because I personally feel that you need to take that beating first. And for that, you need patience, persistence for going through even your miserable bosses, for going through and staying in one organization and trying to be as honest to it as possible, and making and building a community by making sure that these people start feeling something about you and feeling that if he were with me or if she were with me, things get simple. That's the only perspective that you need to start with. That is all about it, my dear people. Thank you so much. It was amazing to talk to you. Now I'm up for all the questions that you have.
Whereas the last slide reminds me of the Michelangelo story, like how he carved out David.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I would like to say that we have had such amazing time when we were in Nirma, because there were so many things that we both could directly get on at a personal level.
Absolutely.
And this is how we feel. And it just made so much meaning, right?
Absolutely, Viraj.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I've taken quite a lot of time. I have exceeded about 25 minutes now. But I think so that if by any chance I was good enough, then it was worth it.
Absolutely, Viraj.
So,
and I've been seeing a lot of comments coming in. But before that, let's put up some questions for you.
Sure.
So this is a question by Mr. Dheeraj Singh. He says that all of this is quite informative, but in real world, mostly every employee is trying to take the credit of someone else. So is it good to be in that organization? And he adds another thing that he has seen mostly bosses buttering their higher ups and bashing the juniors and publicly humiliating them. So how do you create those instincts of servant leadership within you, and is it advisable to be in such organizations?
Mr. Dheeraj, thank you so much for this question. It has brought quite a lot of insight, and believe me, whatever you're saying, I experienced it each and every day when I was in an organization. I have experienced it. I have also left it just because I did not find my bosses to be right. That's why I continuously involved myself, that even I have the same question. But when it came down, that when I thought about these perspectives of how exactly can you just help someone, it has certainly been a really good quotient of how people perceive about me. And what do I hear from people on third party basis? So your question is very intact. That now I have two perspectives on this. First is, you have a very right thing of buttering. People butter a lot every day, day in and day out. Believe me, it happens with me as well. And the second perspective is that while you're buttering, are you doing the work also and being there for the person, the leader, or the person right next to you? This will make the whole difference. If you are buttering, the difference between buttering and being there is this. Buttering is you tell that, oh man, okay, this is something, this is really good, this is something that is really important and you are doing really well. But being there is when, first of all, you need to start buttering. I completely get it. But with that buttering, you need to be there if that person also has a problem. You be there by saying that, sir, if by any chance that's your immediate superior, by saying that, sir, I just heard that there might have been a problem with the boss. Why can't we try and deal with this kind of a situation with working together? What I see in you is that you have amazing sense of responsibility towards the work that you have. And that is what the team needs to imbibe. That is what the team involving me needs to imbibe each and every day to achieve a pedestal that you are in the organization and not face that you are currently having, because at a given point in time, when even I'll have a team, I would really want my team to support at a given point in time with me and standing with me. Okay, sir, we are there. Why not we solve all these things together in a cohesive manner? This is how it has all changed for me. If I am not able to answer this, can you please ask the other question? I'm completely open to all the other parts. I think so I have answered it. This is how you can approach the person. This is how you can approach.
Absolutely. And Dheeraj, I think your question has been answered. You can put it up in the chat box. Meanwhile, we have another question for you, Viraj. So it's by Vasundhara Goyal, who is a student at PP Savani University. Good evening, sir. All of your thoughts were really amazing. But if you could tell more about how to build up the quality of persuasion and come up to the expectations of others and our employees or fellow mates.
Amazing. Vasundhara ma'am, I'm really glad that you liked it first. First of all, the whole concept, before I started out with a slide called Vote of Thanks. So why did I do that? Is because first I want to be thankful for the people who have got me here. That is my first perspective, right? Now, when it comes down to persuasion, I had all of you in that first slide only, that he's thanking us to be here, right? That is the first perspective of persuading someone by being there for someone, right? Second is, persuasion is a technique. Persuasion can be developed. It is not something that you have already got it. Persuasion can be done by the first perspective of listening. Now what happened is, when I entered my family business, where it was like my mother and I were the only part, because my father was seriously ill at that point in time, and the business was at its worst shape at that point in time. People were coming in for asking for money. People were asking that how exactly are you willing to proceed forward, all of these things. So while my mother was catering to these questions, she was also scared, I was also scared. I had that one objective, and that was, I would not speak till the end. I would just want to hear of what exactly are the problems the person is bringing in. When I hear the problems, I completely have that sense of that this is the major problem that this person is facing, and I only target that. I won't waste my energy in all the other perspectives. I will only put my energy in that one perspective that this person is really being facing from. Let's just imagine that the person is facing from that the payment was not there. I completely agree that this is the main perspective. And after that, he started blabbering all of these issues, because just like everybody who's furious about certain things, they'll blabber each and everything that they want. You need to take this up. You need to have that much amount of patience to take this up on yourself, even though you are not involved. That's the first quality of a servant leader. You first need to take that upon yourself, even though you were there or not. Second is, when you just hear him, half of his anger is gone there itself, just because you heard him. Most of the times when you get a call, to let's just imagine that I had received so many calls at that point in time कि आपने हमारा payment नहीं किया, आपने ये नहीं किया. But just because I answered their call, most of the times they knew कि yeah, the person is still there, the person is still answering. That is my major perspective. Second is when it comes down to persuasion, I've already listened to his problem. I know that this is his primary problem, and how will I be able to deal with it? I'll talk with my team कि ये चीज का issue किसकी वजह से आया था, and tell him that sir, can you just give me 15 or 20 minutes? I'll coordinate with my team and I'll get back to you. What will happen is this person will know that he has a team working for him. This team is actually making sure that हमारा कोई भी issue ना आए. So while you do that, he also knows that he considers his team as his equal. So everybody is answerable in this organization. It's not only that the leader is answerable. So he's asking that each and everybody knows that what exactly is the situation of the company, and then I'm coming up. So when even though after 15 minutes I'm going to talk to the teammate or not, that's not important. What's important is I call back after 15 minutes and say, sir, we are really sorry on our part. I know what you're feeling. And that is the exact same which even I have been at a point in time. I completely get it, but the whole point is that because of this issue, we are still stuck up because we are not receiving the payment from that side. Because of this issue, we are continuously trying to pressurize them that if you are able to release this payment, the first person that I'm going to pay is you. This persuasion technique can always be dependent upon the nature that you come up with. Persuasion is way more important on the attitude of the person and not about the arguments that you're putting up. Please know this very, very clearly. When your attitude is like you are a listener, you don't answer back. Sir, पर उस टाइम तो मैं था ही नहीं, ये तो था ही नहीं, वो तो था ही नहीं. This is not something that you're going to persuade someone else with. The thing that you're going to persuade someone else with is the attitude. I completely get it, sir. I understand. I have been there. I understand that what you're going through, but this is how the organization is proceeding. So please bear with us for this much amount of time, and I will make sure that I will be there to answer all your questions. But this is the problem that is going on. This is the first perspective of how you can persuade someone, and that is using your attitude and not your arrogance at that point in time. Right? If I am able to answer, please say yes. If I am not, I'll try and make sure that I'm able to be more clear on certain things. Have I answered Ms. Vasundhara in any way?
Yes, she's replied it in the chat box.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you so much for being a part. That this means a lot because this does not only clarify your doubt, it is also clarifying my doubt while I'm saying to you. So thank you for making me into a man that I'm going to be after a few minutes. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So just a clarifying question by Dr. Ketan. Attributes are inbuilt in all. Utilize, own, and trust on attributes of others. Skills and persuasions are trainable, as I understood.
Sorry, I completely lost you. I'm really sorry. I was thinking that the question is longer.
Okay. So he says, attributes are inbuilt in all. Utilize, own, and trust on attributes of others. Skills and persuasions are trainable. So is this understanding correct?
I completely second you on that, sir. Dr. Ketan, sir, I completely bank on it and I completely agree that this is how it needs to be. But what I generalize on this particular topic is that attributes can be learnable when it comes down to, let's just imagine, let's not take leadership. Let's just talk about attributes that we as humans need to cultivate in our regular day-to-day life. And the first attribute is being good to someone, being there for someone. And this things does not require learning. It can be inbuilt, or probably you can just see and imbibe that this is how a person is getting more credit inside the organization or some way or the other. And this is how what I can perceive or what I can do. And further, it's going to help me out. You are completely right that certain things cannot be trainable. But most of the things that are trainable are what lead to servant leadership.
That's really brilliant, Viraj. And we have just one last question from Mr. Jay Raval. So there's a chance to misuse our talent because some senior colleague is giving additional unnecessary tasks. If we are making good for others, how can we control that these unnecessary tasks do not come to us?
The only answer is persistence. The only and only answer is persistence. And that is, I definitely know that your credit is not being there, even though it's completely you have worked on. You've completely been the whole and soul of the whole project. But believe me, at a given point in time, it will happen that they'll need you. They will need you because the idea and the concept was put by you. The only thing that was required is your persistence and patience that let the leader do it. And believe me, with this, what you will gain is the person who's misusing your thing will start respecting you. He will start respecting and start involving you कि ये आदमी यार इतना बाद में कर रहा हूँ तो भी he's not coming back. He's still working each and every time just to make sure that the company runs well. And whenever I call him, he has that one perspective. Sir, it is helping me clear my own thoughts. That this is how the company needs to be. So the only and only answer is persistence. That what I would say is that even I have lacked at a given point in time. I have lacked persistence, and that's why I lost. That why should I even continue here? The work is completely mine. Why should the person get the credit? Why should the person just because he's my superior? That does not make sense. It's me who has done it. But after certain persistence, when you've continually tried and make sure that you've put your level best work, it's going to be acknowledged. Because let's just believe that there's something called heredity of power. When you that means divesting of power. When the power is going to be divested from one person to the other, it will be dependent upon your own credibility and not the manager's credibility. And when he is divesting the power to you or any other teammate, he's going to do on what source that how many of you complained. If you complained, he'll definitely put that grudge on you. That's our Indian mentality. इसके साथ ऐसा हुआ ना तो मैं अभी इसके साथ ऐसा ही करूंगा. That revenge motive is always there. But just to come out of this trap, you need to, I completely know, you need to suffer for some time. But that suffering will give you all the benefit that you want. You will reap that benefit, believe me, just by persistence.
That's really amazing, Viraj. There's another question by Ms. Rohini. She's a student at PP7 University. Good evening, sir. Your session is really informative. Thank you for this session. But sir, I'm confused that should we be the only one who should understand others' problem?
Very right. The whole point is that you need to start somewhere, right? The whole point is you need to start somewhere. The beginning line, and believe me, the one who begins is the highest always, will be the highest at a given point in time. If you have, let's just imagine that you started, people will acknowledge it slowly. But when it comes down to differentiating you with all the other people, the first people they will choose is going to be you. The first person that they'll choose will be you. So move ahead. That's all I have to say. The question is really good, but the only point being, you will always be acknowledged for the effort that you've put up.
Absolutely. There's another interesting question by Mridu Sharma. She's a paralegal in Houston. Whether a senior should wait for the junior to ask for the solution, or they should advise them beforehand.
Just a second, I'll read it again. Yeah, whether a senior should wait for the junior to ask for the solution, or they should advise them beforehand. Well, ma'am, it's as I would say, as amazing, just like even your name and as well as the way that you're working. I'm really thankful for you being a part of this, first of all. Now, as per your question, it has its own insight, definitely, that whether the senior should start it or whether the junior. What I have a feeling is servant leadership, as I had told, does not dependent upon the organizational level that you are currently at. It can be started even in the junior level. It can also be started in the senior level. If you are at the junior level, you have a higher chance of growing into an individual and making sure that you achieve the pedestal that you've thought of. For seniors, they need to do it because they want to attain the respect that they deserve. If I'm making sense. Now what happens is that when the junior enters inside the company, it is always way too good for a junior to have a nice boss or have a nice senior, because his journey seems to be really fine, because he's able to learn things with new perspectives and with the ability. Like if I just showed the video that how should a senior react to the junior is, you do not need to make the junior feel that you are here to scold them. You are here to tell them that I know that this went wrong, and if I'm not wrong, I agree that even you agree to it, that you did not really well. When you say this, you've already got that person, your junior, inside your confidence. When you do that, with that confidence, you say, see, I want that you perform your level best, and I'm there for you. What can we do together to make sure that this problem that you currently faced is not going to happen in the future? This is the perspective what the senior needs to have. Now, if I'm the junior, all seniors have a senior in some way or the other. So as a junior, when you're going to talk to your immediate superior, he always has a problem in some way or the other, from his immediate senior, from his junior, or from his colleagues. Now, what a junior needs to do is he first needs to just develop an impression. And by that impression, I mean that the thing that I just said, try opening the tiffin box right next to him and say, sir, would you like it? He'll say, no, I don't. I really don't want it. You again can say, sir, I really had the passion to come down to you, and I was really happy to say this because your tiffin consisted of a thing that was that I really like, even though you like it or not. You have to take that bite. But when you sit there, you start closely monitoring that what this person is feeling. You start monitoring that how can you be of any help, even though how much ever a junior you are, you can always be a help to any kind of a senior the person can be. If you are just there to stand with him, that will make the major difference. And how you'll be able to know will come and make a difference when you start at least the first step, and that is listening and trying to imbibe and saying that, sir, I want to imbibe the qualities that you have. Can you just suggest and give things that what did you do to achieve this position? At a given point in time or after certain years, even I want that the credibility that you have needs to be with me as well. I personally feel that if I want to deserve that, what are the attributes that I need to focus? What are the things that I regularly need to target on? And what are the things that I need to speak on? With this, the person will melt down. Melting the other person is how this leadership works. How this beauty is just melting the other person, making them believe that you are here for their problem only. You are making them feel that you are not alone. I am there. Why are you feeling this way? Even though I don't have a solution, I have the audacity to stand with you. Just this small perspective of making the person feel that you are there is going to make the whole difference. They are going to respect you for any person you are, either starting from a peon to the person who's at the highest level. Everything can be possible. Yeah,
that's brilliant, Viraj, and I think a lot of insights that you gave to Mridu. Another question from Mr. Dheeraj. Sir, is it better to talk to higher officials and jump the hierarchy for our problems? And what is the better way without impacting bosses and their ego?
Amazing question, Mr. Dheeraj. I love this question. I love this question because I have very recently faced it. Now, what happened is that we are in talks with another company, right? Now, one of my person who's working in my staff had a talk with him. Now, what happened is that there were certain problems that the person who was in the other company was not able to help out, or was not able to, I would not say able, was not answering in the right way, right? So what did he do is, he, without talking to me or directly writing a mail, he directly approached the superior. Now, what happened is, first of all, he's not representing his own self. He's representing my company as well, right? He's representing this company as well. Why did I say my company here? Is because I want to make sure that you differentiate between the egos towards this and his company. I want to specifically make you look at this. I cannot say my company until and unless I've made sure that my employees need to think that this company is theirs also. When this happens, accountability will start and arise. When the person has the authority, accountability comes with it. Answerability comes with it. So if the person has directly jumped to the hierarchy and directly talked to the other person, it is wrong. It is always more decent and more viable to approach the person. And if the person is still not approaching, still not applying, just write it out. Sir, just because certain criteria were not really, I was not able to get the answer. Will it be possible if I can directly get in touch with the superior? Or I can tell my superior that probably they can directly have a talk, because this is the way that probably I am stuck up, or I'm not able to understand how to proceed forward. Just by this small statement, if the person does not move ahead, the first thing that you need to do is you need to report it to your boss, or probably any other company. Agar usi company ke andar hai, probably you might have been asking this question in relation to your own company, that if my immediate boss is not answering me, should I directly appear in front of the higher boss? See, now what the traditional organizations has is, most of the higher bosses have their own work. They do not care. That is why they have divested the leadership in front of your seniors. Now, what you need to do is, anyhow, you need to get the confidence and the capacity of your immediate senior. Even though that involves thoda marna pade aise karke, karo, koi baat nahi. You need to do it. So while you are doing it, make sure aap unko mail dalte ho. Either the company is here, or you are working inside the company itself, you are sitting in the same premises, you can directly go and talk to him. And probably if the person is not sitting in the same premises, you can directly mail him. So these are the issues that I'm facing with, and I really don't want that these issues are a problem to the organization or you. But so for that, I would be needing your expert advice on this. If I'm and sir, if I have your if I have your permission on this, can I directly and can we both directly approach the boss regarding this? This is how you need to move forward.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The final question, Vasundhara Goyal, she's a student at PP Savani University. Sir, if the leader always owns up to the blames on behalf of his team, and after some time it may so happen that the leader may himself feel demotivated, is there a way to resolve it?
It's amazing. I feel that. I do feel that when quite a lot of criticisms come over me, that how am I going to deal with all of these things here? I have not even been in this field for a long time, and still people are expecting me only to do all these criticism. Job bhi jo bhi lena hai, wo mujh pe mere pe lena hai. But I got to do it. That is how I differentiate myself in front of everybody. That is my differentiating factor in comparison to each and every person of how they are able to see me. The example that I just gave about my father, that when when the staff and they had a meeting, a really tough meeting, they always had that feeling that I wish boss was here, I wish sir was here. Why do they do this? It's because they know that if this person is there, we are relieved. And when a person is relieved, his mind runs fast. His mind runs with solutions. That this might be a solution, and I might be able to give it to boss once we are out of this meeting. कि sir, इसको इस बात तरफ से कर लेते ना, तो शायद अच्छा हो जाता. And when these solutions come down to you, you will come to know that you always have one particular person right next to you who has a free mind and who has the ability to think. So what do you do at this point in time is you are giving the other person also the opportunity to grow. You are giving that person to become the leader himself, because he is getting that kind of solutions inside his mind that while doing this and while sir was facing what I needed to face, I had this thought के sir को इस हिसाब की बात कर रहा था, अगर इस तरह का होता ना तो वो सही हो जाता. And when you talk to your boss or to your leader, that is what's going to happen. He's going to think that I am creating a new leader, and that's how the whole servant leadership hierarchy goes. This is a brilliant question. I would say it's a question in a question, and I answered in a way that this is how you need to look at it. Even though you are suffering a bit, but this will help your organization in turn. Because the person starts feeling, see, there's always a motivation. Let's just imagine, let's take an example of Lagero Munnabai. The person who used to regularly spit in front of the door of that person. He was tired that why should I clean it every day? But there was a melting in the heart at a given point in time and saying that I am sorry. For every person, even though he's your junior or your senior, he's going to achieve that stance at a given point in time. But till then, you would have to be that persistent enough that you are able to do everything and you take it in. But after that, the person's respect towards you will completely change, and the way you are looked at in the organization will completely change, because the person will start favoring you. You will start thinking that why ye to ekdam se change ho gaya. But that's the whole perspective of this. You are now in his eyes that this person can now replace me when I am not here. And that's the sense that you need to start developing inside your organization.
Brilliant. Again, phenomenal response to the questions, Viraj. And now, before I move towards my thank you to you, there are some comments in the chat box. Dr. Ketan Dholakia says, excellent session. Dr. Alpa Yagnik says, amazing session. Then we have Dr. Rajvi, great lecture. Your enthusiasm is infectious, so informative. Vasundhara Goyal says, thank you so much. And now this name is going to bring down a lot of memories, Viraj. Dr. P.K. Chugar.
I am still seeing this, and sir, if you're still there on the line.
He has disconnected, but still you can convey your regards. This is going as a recording as well.
Yeah. Sir, I would just want to introduce, I would just take 2 minutes. I would like to introduce this person in front of everybody who's currently in this session. This person has made a start international business. And if you just listen to how he speaks, you'll come to know that how can loving a person be so simple? How can you just be as close to this person as possible? So, sir, whatever I am, I seriously owe this thanks to you. I seriously owe this thanks to make me into a person who can actually deliver in front of people and think that I have a certain quality that can help the others as well. So this is the thing that you all have instilled in me, and I'm really very much thankful. Thank you so much, sir, for being there and being a source of motivation, because that is all a student needs ever in his life, and that is his teacher standing right next to him and saying that we are there. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. It means a lot, sir.
Indeed, Viraj, and I'll just read it out for our participants as well. Thanks, Shri Viraj Shukla ji, for the excellent presentation on this very important subject. With best wishes and regards, and some compliments for me as well. Thanks, Yash, for the excellent moderations.
It has to be there. It has to be.
Best wishes to all in one. So, indeed, what Viraj you said, Pawan sir actually simplified such complicated things for us, like it was just peanuts. So we actually used to be petrified looking at these long terms and these complicated things. But sir used to simplify it so beautifully for us that it still is there in our memory.
Definitely.
Then we have Rohan saying, very well said, totally agree. Thank you, Viraj and Yash sir, for such an amazing webinar. Vishwa says, thank you so much for this amazing session. Vasundhara says, it was really amazing listening to you. And Jay Raval says, it was very insightful and amazing. And Rohini says, thank you so much, sir. You are awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Means a lot. And it was great talking to all of you this morning.
And last comment from Mr. Ankur Rai, really informative, Viraj. Can't wait to attend your future sessions. So you're already in demand.
Thank you so much, dear Ankur. Thank you so much.
Now, Viraj, as you started this session, the vote of thanks in itself was the anchor point. And here I would like to quote Joseph Green, who says, the best predictor of your ability to get to the dialogue is the amount of curiosity you bring to the conversation.
Yeah.
Just that one slide was enough to spark that curiosity amongst all of us. The session was really insightful, and the sheer simplicity with which you conveyed a really complex concept was brilliant. The four tenets of servant leadership, the ways of practicing servant leadership, the parent concepts, how to initiate the journey of being a servant leader, and the fine analogies that you shared were really well thought of. And I would like to quote, if serving is below you, leadership is beyond you. And you perfectly blended this in your presentation.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so
on
much.
behalf of sorry?
You are the first person I need to thank for this.
No problem. And on behalf of ISTD Ahmedabad chapter, I thank you for taking time out and addressing at the Learners Forum, and wish you the very best for all your future endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, ISTD.